Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for virtually attending the Meet the Artist public meeting for the Argyle Station. My name is Brian Weslowski. I am part of the community outreach team for the Red and Purple Modernization Phase 1 project, and I will be moderating this. Before we get started, I'd like to run through a few items. As you can see, we have live ASL interpretation this evening. We will also be recording this meeting to share on the project's website, so you can refer back to it or share it with others. We will have a presentation, including an introduction of the artist and a Q&A in which we will be taking questions or comments live regarding the public art for the new stations. If you have a question or comment during the presentation or Q&A, please write it in the chat box, or if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand. These features are located at the bottom of your screen and we'll call on you at the Q&A session. We will be recording all questions and comments for review and consideration as it relates to the public art for the stations. Please note that we will only be focusing on public art this evening. If you have construction questions, please email us at rpm@transitchicago.com. I'd like to hand it over to Jeff Wilson to kick off this meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Wilson. I'm the Director of Government Community Relations for the Chicago Transit Authority, and we're really excited to be with you tonight. So thank you very much for spending your Wednesday night with us to meet the artists for the Lawrence and Argyle stations. Before we begin, though, I'd like to provide you with an RPM Phase 1 overview, and before we turn it over to the artists, for the people that are attending the meeting, you may not know that this project is divided into two different phases, Phase A and Phase B. It's also being done in the south at the Belmont station, where we've completed building the flyover. And to the north, we're doing the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization section, where we are building Lawrence, Argyle, Berwyn, and Bryn Mawr, as well as doing track improvements. So this will bring up the stations and the track to a 21st century modern experience that is accessible to everyone. What I'd like to talk about is the stage A, which is we're doing work on the east side of the track, and we are about to finish that part and transition to stage B late in the summer. We are going to be having two public meetings in June on the 21st and the 22nd. Information is available online with transitchicago.com/RPM. And if you are interested in getting CTA RPM alerts, you can go to transitchicago.com/RPM alerts. Without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Allison Cognalese to talk about the artist process. Allison?
Thank you, Jeff. Next slide, please. Thank you. About the CTA Public Art Program. The Chicago Transit Authority incorporates quality design and construction projects, and from time to time, commissions and installs public art for CTA riders and the communities it serves. The CTA commissions professional artists to create original site-specific artwork for permanent display in new and newly renovated transit facilities. Original artworks contribute to each station's identity and enhance travel for CTA customers, as well as regional, national, and international visitors. Next. Next. Thank you. The new commissioned artworks enter the art collection of the Chicago Transit Authority. Next. The CTA is home to an impressive collection of art, including mosaics, image transfer artworks, and sculptures. More than 100 artworks are exhibited at 65 CTA stations and are seen daily by CTA customers. The original artworks contribute to each location's identity and enhance travel for customers. Art in CTA facilities promotes a friendly, inviting atmosphere for those locations, which function as gateways to the communities they serve. For more information about CTA and CTA's public art collection, please visit transitchicago.com/art. Next. Public art projects for the RPM Phase 1 project include the following stations: Bryn Mawr, Hollywood, the the station auxiliary entrance, Berwyn, Argyle, and Lawrence. Project goals. The CTA seeks to commission permanent contemporary artworks that are of superior artistic merit, relate to the station location and environment, provide an improved and more attractive transit experience, are original in concept and execution, and are fabricated of safe, highly permanent materials and processes, and also require minimal maintenance. On February 23rd, 2022, CTA advertised a call for artists for the RPM art project for Lawrence, Argyle, Berwyn, and Bryn Mawr stations. The call for artists was open to all living artists, both emerging and established, with a background in two-dimensional and three-dimensional media and an interest in public art. Prior public art experience was not a requirement. CTA received 166 responses. Now I'll hand it off to my colleague, Elizabeth Karpowitz.
Next slide. So the artist selection process. In reviewing and evaluating the responses to this call for artists, CTA considered the following factors, which are listed in order of importance, beginning with the most important: artistic merit as evidenced in submitted digital images, a written statement of interest, professional recognition as evidenced by awards, honors, and exhibition records, qualifications as evidenced by resume. A review committee reviewed the responses to the call for artists for completeness and minimum qualification and eliminated non-viable responses. A review committee evaluated the remaining responses, determined a relative ranking of candidates based on an all-inclusive evaluation, and compiled a short list of candidates for the project. From the short list of candidates, a selection committee identified finalists for the station locations. Finalists were invited to negotiations and subsequently entered into a contract with CTA for the artwork commission. The selected artist responsibilities. The artist or artist teams awarded a contract will be responsible to collaborate with CTA to design, fabricate, and deliver an original work of art of durable materials and that requires minimal maintenance. Among other requirements of the contract, the artist will be required to meet the project timeline and budget. Commissions. The 5 art commissions are for the design, fabrication, and delivery of artwork. The budget for each commission is $150,000. This is inclusive of design, engineering, if applicable, materials, fabrication, delivery of artwork, and an artist's fee of approximately 15 to 20% of the project budget. The timeline. This evening, we are hosting these Meet the Artist community meetings. This is currently the Argyle station, and later tonight we will have the Lawrence station meeting. The next step in this process from this summer of 2023 through the spring of 2024, the 5 artists will develop their artwork concepts and designs. In spring 2024 through 2025, the process of the approval of the artwork, the fabrication, and the delivery of the art in collaboration with CTA will occur. And in 2025, the artworks will be installed and stations will open. To recap, we have 5 artists for the RPM Phase 1 project: William Conger for the Bryn Mawr station, Alice Hargrave for the Bryn Mawr station Hollywood auxiliary entrance, David Lozano for Berwyn station, Mayumi Lake for Argyle station, Tom Torlumke for Lawrence station. And now it is my privilege to introduce Mayumi Lake, the artist selected for the Argyle station. Mayumi?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mayumi Lake, and thank you for giving me opportunity to meet with an Argyle community tonight. I lived near this Red Line area shortly after I moved to Chicago, about more than 20 years ago. This area represents my first experience of a Chicago life. It also holds sweet memories of the taste of the freedom of my youth art school time. And this is also the first place I experienced the diversity of Chicago and the rich Chicago Asian cultures. So I'm very honored to be able to make a special artwork for Argyle Station. And so the brief introduction about myself before showing everybody the 10 slides of my past work. I am originally from Osaka, Japan. I moved to Chicago in 1992. So I guess it's more than 20 more, so it's like 30 years. Yes, I studied photography as an undergraduate and then did the master's in photography also at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I currently work and also teach photography department over there. So in my work, I often use autobiographical elements, my identity, being an immigrant, and floating in between real and imaginary, East and West, cultural conflict and comfort, and past and present, and the personal and the cultural memory, cultural heritage. I use photography as a fundamental vehicle for my visual languages. However, I have expanded it to sculpture and the installation to add more complex layers to express my ideas in my work. So tonight I have a 10 image of the past work to share today. And then I would like to talk about my work based on the 3 key elements, which is first one is how do I reflect or contain my Asian identity in my work? And secondly, the scale of work, which is more similar to the scales that I would do for this Argyle project. And then third, the size specificness of some of my work. So first slide, please. Okay, so then to quickly go over my currently what I've been my current project is. So since 2016, I've been working on a body of the work. It's called Unison. So the Unison is the Unison's inspiration is this imaginary flower, the ancient imaginary flower called Hosoge. It's literally meaning a treasure looking flowers. So this Hosoge was believed to be blooming in heaven. So that people will think like, that when they finish their life in here and then they move to the next stage on the other side of their life, they will see these flowers. So this Hosoge was very popular in the ancient Japan up to the 12th century, but kind of forgotten for many years, almost centuries. And this imaginary flower or plants and then flower patterns originated in the ancient Middle East, then traveled to the ancient China and Korea, then came to Japan through the Silk Road. Ancient Japanese people adored these flowers and they used as a coping mechanism to deal with their fears of an uncertain world back then, political chaos and natural disasters. The bigger their fears, the more immersive than this Hosoge flower became. And in 2016, the year I started this the body of the work, well, also then if you can remember what happened in 2016, there's a lot of uncertainty and happened in the United States. And then I felt very concerned about what's going to happen, especially like me being an Asian immigrant and also female. So I wanted to make my own version of a Hosoge. I was also amazed that after 1,000 years, human emotions and fears have not changed at all. So that's how I started this work. So this, the first image you guys seeing, this is the installation I did for the Chicago Artist Coalition's, the boat residency. So this is the first iteration of the Unison. The imaginary flowers. So So this is so this installation shows my vision of a kind of in-between state of life and death, kind of like a not purgatory, but I call it as a birdo. So the pink lights and the sparkles from the mirror balls spin and then fill the space and add a movement. And then also audio sounds fill the space. So that transforming this room into the imaginary space. Next slide, please. So from next three work, I'll talk about the how I reflect my Asian identity. So so this is so this piece is called Unison Droplets. So then I made this piece during a COVID, the kind of like a beginning of the COVID time. Ironically, that pandemic made me very aware of the significance of the being an Asian in the United States. It was such an eye-opening experience, and to get the new perspective of who I am. And then I started to actively contain my Asian voices in my work, which is in I never done it before the pandemic time. So this so I named this piece Droplets because it's if you guys can remember the beginning of the pandemic time in the news, we see lots of computer graphic image of the, how one person talk, or those, like an stuff we would just, throw around and then affect other people. So it was so that every day news was saying droplets. So then I will make the droplets using those and the flowers of the hosoge. So the next slide, please. So this piece is called typecasting. So it's also at the beginning of the pandemic that PBS did a wonderful documentary about Asian American. I think it was a Kent Byrne, directed by Kent Byrne. But in the first episodes, Aname Wang and Sesshu Hayakawa was featured, and they're the first Hollywood Asian Hollywood actress and an actor and actress. So then in the documentary, they use the word of the typecasting over and over, and then that word really hit my heart. The word is this typecasting word was perfect to describe the type of the discrimination and the violence happening in to us, our community back then. So, and then also this shape is, I took this shape from the atomic bomb, the mushroom crowd. So this there's a double-sided piece. So the one side, it says typecasting. This word is made with a pink ribbon. Next slide, please. So this piece is called Unison Causality. So then this piece was shown in the Hyde Park Art Center towards the end of the pandemic time. So then when we are getting out of the pandemic state, I was also thinking about how people are connected, and then how the one person's action will affect others, not only like, through those droplets or, the body fluid, but it was one person's action will how that is related to the people around us. So everybody is connected either physically or emotionally. And then I wanted to represent that connectivity with this flower. So chain of the flowers is, that starts from the top, and then, piling each other, and then it become like a chain, like the shape, and then float towards to the bottom. And then this piece was hung in the middle of the light center of the gallery space, and then with a huge motor on the top, it was quietly float. So for the viewer, that they will, when they come into the gallery, they will see it. It's unavoidably there. So they can't really avoid it, right? So that I also wanted to use a placement as like to then kind of like the symbolize that Asian Americans, like we may be quiet, but we are there, we exist in here, and then unavoidably. So that was this piece. Next slide, please. Okay, so from here, 3 works that I want to talk about scales. So this piece is called the Unison. Sorry, I didn't name this one Unison, but it's this piece is called Pangea. You know that ancient the continent used to exist before it's just to become the current the continent. So the scale of this piece is 25 feet by 14 feet, 25 feet long and 14 feet high. And then this is for the permanent installations for the Facebook / Meta Chicago office. So this is also kind of site specific. I made this design kind of like continent-like or flower-like shape to mimic the, of course, in the ancient continent Pangea, but also how the Facebook is the social media can connect the people over different time zone or different languages. No matter where you are, you can connect, you know, that you can connect with the other side of the world. That's how I feel with my friends in the back home. No matter I'm in 14 hours, 15 hours, 14 hours the behind, but I can still talk to them. And then with just using this platform. So it's kind of like a word is combining when we're talking, but then when we're not talking, it would just you know, the spreading. So that's why I did that the name this installation as a Pangea. So the next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So then I like to talk about a little bit about my process. So this is a detail of the Pangea work. I use anti-girl kimonos and then digitize individual flowers with high-res scans. And this allows me to change the size of flowers and then multiple as much as I want, because there's no way that I can shop the original old kimono garments. I can't do that. Then I digitally output and then the hand cut, and then I make layers and then make my own version of hosoge flowers. These processes are very intuitive, but for this piece, I made like a very clear plans of that. This is going to look like a continent, but it's also going to look like floating flowers. And then for this Argyle project, I use a more durable material. I'm thinking about, and no, I'm planning to use a more durable material for this Argyle project, such as latex prints on the metal with an laser cutting. So this piece we see is inkjet flowers, no, inkjet, hand-cut inkjet, but for this Argyle station, it's gonna be much more durable solid material. Next slide, please. Okay, so this piece is called elisters. So elister is a name of the chemical that the plant makes for the self-defense. So this is how this title came. So it's a chemical self-defense the systems that a plant has, which is amazing. I was researching it and I said, wow, plants can move, but they would just you know, they can spray this chemistry and then protect themselves. So, and then also this piece design is inspired by Hokusai's final painting, the phoenix bird on the ceiling he did in the temple in Japan. Yes. And then next slide, please. Oh, sorry, the elister is the size of the 12 feet by 8 feet. But anyways, so this is a little bit more site specific. This is called a Unison Nimbus. So size is 15 feet by 5 feet long. So for this installation, I made a cloud of brain shaped like a floating flowers, and each flower mimics the body of the brain cells. I was thinking about a brain in a vat, the philosophical idea of the questions of the reality, truth, mind, and consciousness and the meanings, right? That what we're seeing is actually only the imaginary happening in the brain, and then you yourself as a little brain floating in the tank. So this work is also symbolizing the after living in far away from my home, so-called home. So then is my memory of a home is real? I was questioning, is my memory in a home real, or is it really happens, or I'm just making up my, in my brain, or and completely fabricated or altered over the year. So the memory, people's memory can change over the year. So this is, putting all those ideas, and then it made this kind of floating flowers in space. So that reason I say site specific is this is the old house that lighthouse keeper once lived. So the inside is a very Japanese the house. This is this house is in Shikoku in Japan. So this outside so inside is very, very Japanese, but outside is a very Western. So I thought it's like a very simulating and the immigrants, the body. So after spending so many years in here, our body cell might be created in here, United States, but my human won't lose any brain. So our brain is still like made, the original brain made in our homeland. So so that kind of like interaction between real and imaginary. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so then so this is this work is called Unison Filmata. This is a very small work, but site specific piece that I did for Epiphany Center for the Arts on Ashland, to go with an original Tiffany glass window. It's a very beautiful building, and I love historical building. I love every like an architectural history, and then the element. So I'm for this piece, I'm trying to go with the color and shape of the Tiffany glass, original Tiffany glass in the building. So I guess this is the last slide, but I wanted to add one more thing. So I'm currently working on the permanent installation for the O'Hare Airport Terminal 5 expansion arrival corridor. So then, unfortunately, I cannot include those the work in this slide presentation because I have not installed yet. It's still currently in my studio. And then I'm supposed to install this this summer soon, hopefully. So then so the installation is underway. And then for that piece, I used so the hosoge is I said hosoge is an imaginary flower, ancient imaginary flower. But for this O'Hare piece, I intentionally used the flower, the Chicago flower, which is chrysanthemums, and also the violet, the flower of an Illinois state. So, and then chrysanthemums is, then I said chrysanthemums is a Chicago flower, but also native of the Asia. So I was very interested in like a flower, Chicago flower is actually immigrated flower. And then it's kind of simulates like, we Asian immigrants living in United States. So so hopefully that I can finish this installation soon, so you guys can see that that installation. So I guess that's all images. Thank you so much.
Mayumi, thank you very much. That was a terrific presentation. Brian?
Yeah. So now we will begin the Q&A portion of the presentation. Just a reminder that you can use the chat box to type your question, or if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand and I will call on you and you will be unmuted. Both of those buttons are located at the bottom of your screen.
So we are entering the community engagement portion of this evening's meeting and the question and answer session. We welcome questions from community members who are tuned in for Mayumi, the artist for Argyle, as well as any other questions about the CTA art program as it relates to RPM. The questions that you might ask could, or the comments that you may have, you may be able to share some highlights of the history of the community that might be useful for Mayumi in her research, although she has told us she is actually a resident of the community when she first came to the United States. Also, if you have information about special features of the community surrounding the Argyle station, that could be helpful to Mayumi as well, or suggestions of themes for the artwork. So we will welcome your comments and questions. Thank you.
I'd like to start with a couple questions while we wait for the attendees to come up with something from our registration. So a first question for you, Mayumi. Are the flowers you used in the O'Hare project, chrysanthemums and violets, also from kimonos?
Yes, all those flowers that I use is in the kimonos. I was not sure if I should grab the, I mean, it's that below this, that area that you don't see, is just a box and a box of my kimonos. So I also run the Chicago area kimono groups, so that we will, we are trying to give them more information about what's a kimono, how to wear it, and maybe not how to wear the history, because I love history. I love everything is old. So this is a kind of like can you guys see it? So this is a kimono flowers. It's a little girls, ceremonial kimonos, which is unfortunately we no longer have an that, we don't wear this every day. We lost this habit. So, but then, the material that I buy this as a material, it's often discarded it. It's very old, stains everything. But yes, chrysanthemums happen to be one of the most popular flower patterns used in the girls' kimono. There's a million different type of the chrysanthemums.
Cool, thank you. I see a hand up by Peter. If we could give him the floor and unmute him. All right, Peter, you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question or comment.
Okay, thank you. Mayumi, I'm Peter Poor from the Southeast Asia Center. Nice to meet you.
Me too.
I've lived here for over 40 years, next to the CTA, and very close to Argyle as well. Anyway, I love the poetry explanations, but one comment I have is that you will not be there to explain things to people when they look at your artwork. I think that it would be nice if you tried to think. It's fine if you use symbolism, but remember, most people will not understand it. They're not going to get into it, so it needs to have both the beauty standalone without the background of the stories, and some of them are good. I'm not sure that we should be emphasizing the, if I can use the word superstition, about the Asian cultures. There are other things we might want to emphasize other than the superstition aspect of it. And I like the fish scale, the feather, the flower themes, that's fine. But just remember that people will be looking at it as they go into the L or out, and it's basically the impression they need. And the art itself has to tell the story rather than your verbal explanations. But thank you very, very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your feedback. Yes, I am fully aware. And then the part of the reason I'm very interested about public art is because I used to do the gallery exhibitions, and then but then of course the people who read artist statement, right? Those are I was, the making art to the art audience. But then the beauty of the public art is it's like a, like a very visual. And then I wanted to, for this Argyle project, I really wanna, that's gonna be my first priority. So the piece that I'm going to make is going to be like visually attractive with anybody who comes to the station, either like the visitors or daily commuters, or like a long-time residents, like you. So it have to be like then I want to make something that is very visually catching, visually pleasing. And then if somebody wanted to have like a don't think about, that what does this mean? Then it's great if they can just do the go more. I wanted to go deeply. That's great, but I'm not really. I don't think it's the role of the public art is it should not be like educational. It should not be it should not be like a same as the like an the art gallery. So it's for everybody. So that's the kind of like the accessibility is what I'm interested. So yeah, I mean it's the so then but it's every artist has a like a back history, and then of course everything has a reason and a motivation. So, but it's, I wanted to make the piece that people will remember about Argyle Station, just like how I remember about Argyle Station from my, the youth art students time, and then surrounding, the area. So I wanted to like, that when people, let's say for the tourist, first time they visit in Chicago, they think like, oh, Argyle Station, there was like a beautiful red, the column and entrance, and there is the piece. I don't know what it's about, but I do remember, and then I associate that is Argyle Station. So that's kind of things I am hoping that I can achieve in this this project.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Karpowitz from the CTA Art Program. I would just like to add that at each of the CTA stations where we have commissioned public art, we do have permanent didactic signage that identifies the artist, the title, the materials, the year it was installed, a little bit of biographical information about the artist, and then a very condensed and sort of easy to read explanation of the art. Sometimes those didactics can be more detailed than others, simply because there's a lot of information in the art that should be shared in order for the experience of seeing the art can be enhanced by the additional information or the explanation. Thank you. Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Actually, you had preemptively answered a question that we had gotten in the chat. Michael had asked, could there be a QR code near each piece that would lead the viewer to the support information? I think you answered that question then.
Yes.
I do have another question from registration. This has historically been Asia on Argyle, but Argyle Street is changing and bringing in other cultures at a rapid rate. Excuse me. For example, there are new Latin restaurants on the street. How will the art take into consideration the changing cultural makeup?
Yeah, so then so when I during the research of this imaginary flowers, like I said, and during the presentation, it's originally started from the Middle East and then traveled to the China and Korea, but it's also I was talking to my friend, my artist friend, when I was in the residency when I started to make this piece. Also in South America, there is a very similar color palette and then flower. So, I mean, it's a flower is it's everywhere in the world, and then everyone can associate the flowers, and then it may have a different meanings in the different cultures, but I'm also interested about the utilize those meaning for each flowers for the different cultures. So it's that every culture has a use of flowers, and then flower usually makes the people very bright and happy, right? So that's kind of like uplifting and the feeling that I wanted to use. And then I'm also very aware, even if I say that the Asian community, it's also very, very diverse, right? It's there is so complex history, and then the meanings, and then the symbolism in each culture. And then I'm trying to as many as that of course my piece, my art project started very personal standpoint of view, but I believe that the most personal is the most universal. I think that was like a famous quote from a couple of years ago Oscar. So that was a very great the things to hear, and then it's the flower can connect the lot of people. So I think it's yes, that I'm fully aware about this, and there is a Argyle is yes, it is still that the lot of Asian community, but it's beyond more, and there's so many people from the many area come to use Argyle station. So I like to consider it, and then make this to the kind of more universal experience when they see the artwork.
Mayumi, thank you. That I think that's really significant, that the flower is the universal language that connects us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayumi. So I encourage others, if you want to speak, please raise your hand or type any questions or comments into the chat box. I do have a couple comments also from registration. One person says they are excited to learn about the project. And I have one more. The importance of public art cannot be overstated. Many thanks to all who are working to make the Argyle station more inviting. I see we have a hand up by San O. If we can give her the floor, please. All right, San O, you should be able to unmute yourself. You can find that in the bottom left corner. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Mayumi, your artwork is phenomenal.
Thank you.
It's very, very exceptional.
Thank you.
I would agree with the former speakers that if possible, would be good to be inclusive.
Mm.
It's true that there are many Asian immigrants in the area, but it's also true that there are so many other immigrant groups. And if you go to the lakefront, you can see actually any more other group than Asians in the area. And we want people to feel welcome in the
Yeah.
neighborhood. And so when you do the art piece, would be good to keep that in mind. The Asians, I don't know, I guess you cannot see me, but definitely I'm Chinese from Vietnam. But I do want other groups to feel welcome here. This is an immigrant neighborhood. So nobody should feel that, well, I should say everybody should feel that this is their home. It's more than one group. So how do we express that? And I know you mentioned that public artwork is not educational, but I think it's a very important avenue that we could promote harmony among groups, that we are all one in the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would love to, I'm hoping that I can meet with more people in the community. Also, also wanted to I'm also thinking about, going and visiting the area and seeing buildings, and then, I say that I used to live in around the area, but it's also like more than 20 years ago. So, and then I'm sure it's way more diverse now. Also, like I'm also noticed that that when I live in there in like a late the 90s to the early 2000, that was people think about Asian culture as a little bit more differently, but now it's so much more like a kind of like a dissolved into the different culture. So I see like so many fusions of that, the culture is coming. So I'm I really want to support like the diversity of the, like kind of like an melting pot of the Chicago and also Argyle area. So yeah, so that I wanted to, yes, I will, I still need to learn so many things about like, the community, and then what's communities, like the focus, and then more like the new flow of the people in the area. So yeah, so then hopefully that I can do the visit and site visit an Argyle station soon.
Great, thank you, Sano. I actually have another question for you from our chat. Can you talk a little more about the influence of heaven and the notion of being between spaces in your work? It seems like such an important element of a transit station. It seems like a way to connect the diversity of the area.
Yeah, so then this in-betweenness is that I talk repeatedly every time I do artist talk, but it's the it used to be like like an coming from an indecisiveness of the I don't that I know I'm from Japan, and then I live in here, but then that I was not sure which side that I should, take. It's not like I have to take each side, but then sometimes you have to, right? Then I feel like I can, then really decide which side I belong. And then, but if I'm, that focus myself in a floating in between, that I can get both, like a kind of benefit for the both side, right? And then, I can expand myself into the double meaning kind of thing. So, so then the in-betweenness is coming from the East and, the Eastern culture and the Western culture. and also like, the Japanese, and then also that, the other Asian culture. And then also like the floating in between past and present, which is like I said, I love everything about historical things, and especially in Chicago, such a rich the history in the buildings and the people and then the food and the culture and everything. So me being in floating in between, I can experience the both side. I can get like a double myself, then my thoughts, my feelings, and then also I also can expand my memory in a double, because it's memory is a very important element for me to. It's kind of like one of my stronger drive to create the artwork is a memory, and then how I react from what happened to me. So I think it's done. In betweenness is good way to expand my input, and then also I can double then my output and my creative output. Hopefully that's the answering your questions.
Well, that was great. Thank you. Not seeing anyone else with their hand up or any questions in our Q&A or additional in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask Mayumi?
Brian, I think if we don't get any more questions in the chat, that it's probably time to thank Mayumi very much for sharing your story and your process and your thoughts so far about your project for the Argyle station. I know your research and your thinking about this has really just started. So we very much appreciate you sharing this evening. Your work is phenomenal. I will agree with Sano. All right, so thank you so much. So Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. If we could have the last slide on the screen, please. Thank you all again for joining us this evening. On the screen in front of you, we have listed all the ways for you to reach out and stay informed on the project. As always, if you have any additional questions or comments regarding the public art or construction, please reach out via email at rpm@transitchicago.com. Thank you very much for attending, and please enjoy the rest of your evening.